What's up guys, my name is Tim, and in this video I'll guide you through the valve cover gasket replacement on this F80 BMW M3 with the S55 engine. And first of all, I'll give you the list of tools you need, then we'll explore why we're replacing the valve cover on this particular car, and also the other reasons to replace the valve cover on this car. And then we definitely go by step-by-step instruction on how to do that with all the difficult moments covered. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So here goes the list of tools we'll need. So here's the reason why we're replacing the valve cover, the whole valve cover on this M3. The crankcase ventilation valve is built into the valve cover itself, and it gets clogged and it's making this kind of noise. The easy tell is if you do this, opening the oil cap just for a second, it will release the pressure and the noise will go away. There you go. So if this happening on your BMW M3, replace the valve cover. The other reason for valve cover or valve cover gasket replacement on any BMW, and this is no exception, is valve cover leaking oil. Usually on the bottom end because the engine is angled this way, so it's always going to be leaking on the bottom side of it. So that's the other reason for it. But in my experience on the M3s, F80, the valve cover itself makes this noise first and then leaks. First we remove the plastic on both sides, same thing. So we have 3 10mm clips, 90° counterclockwise, and 1 clip right here. Next we're going to remove this reinforcement bar. We have 3 13mm bolts right here, 2 13mm in the front, 1 10mm next to expansion tank, and another 3 13mm right here. Now we're going to take this whole piece out. First the wire out, and then this thing. Now we have to remove the second set of reinforcement. It's this metal bar. So we have 1, 2, 3 E12s. It's a socket just like that. E12 socket. And then we have 1 bolt right here, which is E14. And the last one is 16mm right here and next to it. 16 mil. Two more E12 bolts under this cover, so we'll remove that. There's 2 clips in there, 1 and 2. Now we're gonna remove this piece of plastic. It's held by 7 10mm bolts, and the other side. Now we're gonna remove the air filter box, the mass airflow sensor, and the wiring, and then unscrew those. Now we're going to remove this clamp and take this whole boot out. And now the air filter box, which is just on clips. Now we're going to take those tubes out, which is held by 1 E10. It's the same on the other side right there, but for that we have to remove this 10mm from this tube. And we just remove them. Now we'll need to remove the intercooler, which is on clips. But before we do that, I will drain the coolant from, not drain, but suck it out, coolant from expansion tank using the usual hand pump. Now we're going to remove the mini expansion tank right here. So there's 2 Torx 25 bolts and 1 clamp. Use the regular pliers. And I also will disconnect the coolant hoses from the intercooler, and then we can remove the intercooler. There's also a sensor right there, so just unplug that. Don't forget about one more clamp right here. And expect some coolant leaks, of course, like you can't suck it out, all of it. Now we're gonna remove this shield. For that, the wire first, and then just unclip it. Now we're finally exposed to the valve cover itself, so we have all the usual N55 engine, just like any other BMW. Ignition coils, then 8mm nuts right in between the injectors, and we will disconnect the injectors, of course, and the fuel rail. So those are 17mm, so we'll have to take those. Then the fuel rail is held by 4 11mm bolts, and those are 14mm on the injectors. So we'll remove those, take this out, of course, remove all the injectors first. We'll start with the coils first, and then all the wiring. Those are Torx 25 right here, Torx 25 right there. You also can see the oxygen sensor connectors in here. So we will disconnect them and move the whole wiring out of place. So here's how you remove the ignition coil. If it's not stuck, you just move the cap and it unlocks the connector, and then I usually use my screwdriver. You just pull it right here and pull straight up. There we go. The other way, if this cap is stuck, you can use your screwdriver to put it right here, twist it, and then hold it on both sides and push it like this. So it disconnects, and once again, use the screwdriver to pull it straight up. So everything is disconnected on the fuel rail, and now we have this wire holders in place. The way you remove it is you push it down and going up. If you just try straight up, it's locked. So push it down and then go up. And it uncovers 2 bolts right here. It's 11mm, and it's the same right there in the back. So another hanger right here. So 4 bolts in total. 11mm, and then we remove the fuel rail entirely. Now we're gonna remove this harness, well, unplug it. It's 12mm right here and 13mm right here, deep sockets. So we'll take this off and we can finally take the E10 bolts from all around the valve cover. I'll show you the ones that are most difficult, which are in the back. The rest, we're just gonna untie them and proceed. To unplug the O2 sensors, what we're gonna do is stick the screwdriver right here, twist, and now we can go from here. And pay attention, one of them is yellow, the other one is black. You can't miss and mix them. They will not fit one another. Now we're gonna take the 3 bolts in the back that are the most difficult. So what I'm gonna use is extension and then the swivel head like this and E10 socket in the end. So it's impossible to shoot right here, but the bolt located is right here. So that's the way the extension follows right there. And you can use your second hand, of course, to guide the extension. It's easier if you do remove the gloves. There's also a possibility that you can do it without the swivel, so it's doable, it's possible. And it's out. For the other 2, I'm just gonna use a longer extension, and it's right there. You can see the gap. It just goes right in and sits on the bolt. And then the last one is located right here. We can do that with, yeah, just the long extension. That's all we need. Now all the bolts are disconnected and we can finally remove the valve cover. Now the final piece of the valve cover, it's two E7 bolts right here on eccentric shaft motor. To remove the seal, there we go. I'm gonna remove the valve cover, basically pull it out. I'd say there is a leverage right here on the oil filter housing, so we can lift it off a little bit, and after that it's gonna be significantly simpler. Just pay attention to this hose. Luckily it's flexible. Everything is out of the way except this pipe. There we have it, the pieces of valve cover. Of course, the gasket is still stuck to the head, but this is it. Now, in order to install the valve cover, I want to let this wire a little bit more loose, so I'm going to remove this plastic piece. It's on clip right here. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. So we just take this off, and now we have way more room to fit the valve cover. Just don't forget to put it back on. Let's talk about the parts a little bit. So this valve cover is from the factory, and you can see the BMW stamp right here, but the actual manufacturer of the valve cover is Moly. We have exactly the same valve cover right here, which is BMW Moly. I don't think anyone sells those, but BMW doesn't make parts. You gotta remember that. So one more thing before, well, you can do it after. Don't forget to transfer those pins. Those are for the covers and everything. Also, don't forget these holders for the oxygen sensor connectors. Transfer to the new valve cover. Everything you see in here that can be transferred, transfer it. Before installing valve cover, of course, clean the surfaces and make sure you don't pinch any wires. So let's get to it and make sure the gasket is sitting properly. So there we go. There's plenty of room in this car, so it's not that hard. There we go. Everything goes good so far. Now we are going around the fuel rails lines and the final wiring. That feels like a good sitting valve cover, but important, I'll take my glove off to check if I pinched the seal in the back, if everything's aligning properly. So do that every time. Now I'm gonna torque the bolts, and that's pretty much it. Next up is the fuel rail. So now I'm gonna put the intercooler back in place, sort of, but not fully, because there is a secondary coolant tank is still there, but I just want to fit it into the intake boot. Don't clamp it yet. Then I'm gonna route the hose of the secondary expansion tank, and then we can finally push it in. It goes. There is a spot right there where it fits. Make sure everything fits properly and don't lose the wire for this sensor. Now, when everything is done, don't forget to fill up your both coolant tanks with coolant and start the bleeding procedure. The way to do it, without turning the car on, push the start button, everything lights up, heater to the max heat, the fan can be at the minimum, and step on the gas for about 10 seconds, and the car will bleed itself. Now everything is done and car is back together, everything runs perfect, the car is awesome. Now the only thing left is to enjoy the car. If you've reached the end, guys, thank you very much. I hope that video was helpful, and this step-by-step guide will definitely help you in your repairs, or if you work in a shop, anywhere. Drop a like for this video and then you'll receive the blessing from BMW gods, and share, subscribe, do all of that. I hope to see you in the next one. Don't break your cars.